Hi, Sandy from Halloween Corazon. Today is the second part of the Magical Keys tutorial. During the first one, we cut out the wings, we cut out the inserts, and we cut out the keys. I think I went a little fast in the materials list, so I'm just going to go back over those again real quick. And I'm going to make sure that I put a written description underneath this video so you can have something to just print out and go to the craft store with. But the first things that you want to do is you're going to need a glitter fabric. The glitter fabric sheets, you can get them in all different kinds of colors. They're quite easy to find. You're also going to want to get some contact paper, because I found that if you use contact paper under this, it sticks a lot better to the mat. The first time I did it, I didn't do that, and I ended up with, you can see the cuts through here. It's because it jumped off, and nobody wants that. So you're going to need a glitter fabric sheet. You're going to need a little contact paper. I recommend that you use a felt that is a blend of both wool and acrylic. I think that they're a little stronger and a little tougher, and then I would just get that in any color that you want the background of your key to be. I used green because I think it's pretty, but it could be any color at all. So some of that will blend. Then you're going to want like a thicker stiffened felt. This is acrylic. It's 3 millimeters. I get it at the local, fabric shop here. And you're going to use that to make it a little stiffer on the back, so it holds its shape a little bit more. Again, it doesn't matter which color. I usually try to pick a color that blends in with the actual pieces that I make. You're going to need some fancy cardstock. I found this iridescent green cardstock. I don't know where. I hope I find more. I have no idea where I got it. But I use that. This isn't a very thick paper either. It's maybe 130 grams. So it doesn't have to be very thick. It's going to go behind everything. I'm using a gold cardboard for the key. This one is a bit thicker. This one is actually a 300 gram paper. And I think it needs to be, or the key, there'll be no substance if you compare it to the wings. So I think that you have to use a bit of a heavier paper. That way that it doesn't look like you have like a toothpick behind a bunch of wings. After that, you're going to need some jewels for the center. You're going to need a jump ring to hang a ribbon. You're going to need a gold Sharpie for the key. I'll explain that in a second. You're going to need some handy dandy glue, my favorite, Beacon 3-in-1. And a weeding tool, which you'll use in a little bit, and some scissors. Easy. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to start putting together the base here. So I'm going to take the felt that we have here, and the wings, these parts, and then a key. The trick with the gold marker and the key, when you cut gold cardboard, it's white on the inside here, there. So yeah, I think it looks like a piece of paper. But if you just take and run a gold marker around the edge, then all of a sudden the whole part is the same color. And a quick easy tip I have for that is when you're going to color in around the marker, around the edge, just put it on a piece of parchment paper and draw up next to the edge of it. So if you do that, then it won't bleed out over your the top of the key, and it also won't distort the paper as you go. And just kind of hold it to push it into the different corners, but do it lightly and just try to keep it on the side. But you end up with a nice even coating if you do it that way, and you don't have to try to sit and figure it out like this, because that's not the easiest way to do it. So just lay it down, take your pen, stick it on an angle, and draw into it. So that's your gold marker. After that, we have our wing pieces. And I always try to kind of put stuff together a little just to make sure everything's where it's supposed to go. It's so easy to, when you're crafting, to get confused about which side is which. So this is the back side of the wings. So I can see that that is not the right piece for this one. So it's going to go over here, and this one is going to go over here. So I usually just take and put like a small right and left. That way when I'm working, I don't have to stop to see which piece is which. I can just put them in and glue them up. So the first thing I'm going to do is glue these together. And so I use the Beacon. I think it's a really nice glue. It doesn't run. It can glue a lot of stuff. I use it for fabric. I use it for like trim. We're going to use it to put the gems on. It's really, really good for paper. It doesn't wrinkle the paper or anything like that. So I really recommend this this glue. I've used a lot of the Beacon's glues, and I think this one is a really, really good one. But what I do is I just take a little bit of the glue and just run it not quite up against the edge, and just the smallest amount possible. It doesn't take a lot to have this stuff to stick. I also try not to put it right against the edge, because then if I have to wiggle it a little bit, there's space for it. It doesn't need glue down every part, but just enough, just enough to go around the wing. Then I use a tweezer with an angular head to just kind of place that on there. And then that should be there. I love this paper. I really wish I knew where I got it from. We'll do the same thing again. Just a small thin coat of glue. And it doesn't have to be a lot. When I use this glue, it's as you can see, it sometimes gets a bit stringy. You can cut it with acetone if it's too, if it gets too thick. But I just try to always, when I use it, I kind of flip the thing toward the back. So if there are any strings, they go away from my hand and my artwork. So just like that. And then we're going to put this back in here. Lay that on. Two more. Gluing goes fast. Just and then we know that's the right one. And of course, if glue, it's going to bleed out a little bit behind here, but it doesn't matter because this is going to be glued to this felt in a few minutes anyway. Go back in, and the last one. Just a quick thing around the edge. Then we are going to lay this in. No, and like I said, if it's one part of it doesn't get glue into it, it's not a big deal because the whole thing is going to be glued down around it anyhow. But just set that in. And then you should have this piece. One thing I was going to say with the fabric, the glitter fabric, is when I made the cuts, I realized there was a lot of stray, there's not so many here, I've cleaned it up, but a lot of these little stray pieces. I just took a really thin, a very thin scissor I have, and I just went in and literally just cut them out so that I got rid of that frayed edge look. So it's a lot cleaner now. But that is done. And then we have our key that I went through, and before we got on camera, I went and did the gold around all the edges. So we're going to take the key and glue the back of him again. I put a piece of parchment paper down, but because this stuff is, because you can use acetone, it tends to take off the print on the mats. So I usually just work over parchment paper, and then I don't have to worry about trying to scrape off glue or if anything happens to it. But this one you'll be able to see the glue a little bit more. You don't need a lot of this glue. In fact, if it looks a little dry, that's actually better. So you just go in and kind of push it up almost to the edge. It's none of the things I make, they don't get a lot of actual wear. So things don't have to be, they don't have to be glued down like if it was going to be worn or something like that. This is all just decorative. But get your glue on, just a little thin coat like that, nothing too big. And then we are going to take our tweezer and we're going to lay this in here. I'm going to pull a little off camera just so I can get it in the right place. But it'll be right back. If you don't go all the way to the edges of things, it gives you a little more play if you need to move things with your tweezer, because if you have to move just a millimeter or so, then you're not pulling like a section that didn't have glue out. Yeah, that looks good. We'll just tack that down. Easy enough. Then we have the wings, which we're going to go back over again. Just go down right about on the edge. Like so, a little in the middle. It dries quickly, but you can work, according to the website, they recommend that you work between 1 to 3 inches at a time. But I think with this, it usually goes so fast that I just glue everything on. So then we pick that up and then lay it again. We're just going to pull it off camera a little bit and lay it into place. Yeah, there's that. Now, to make it a little bit more decorative, I am going to take and put a gem in the center. I think I'm going to use a round one this time. And just flip this over. The 3-in-1 is good for that. It glues most things. It even glues seashells. I'll never use seashells, I promise you. But if you do, it glues it according to the website. So a little bit of glue, pop that right into place, like so. There you go. So that's put together. Now, the area up here, you can do a couple of different things with it. If there was, I don't know, a symbol that was sort of magical, that was kind of a triangle that any of you guys know about, something like that might fit perfectly through here. But since we don't know what symbol that is, then I recommend that we could use a rhinestone. You could put a letter up here. You could put a kind of sticker. You could do whatever you want. But it's really, really good if you have a triangular design there, if you get what I mean. I'll try to stay out of trouble with with movie executives. So yeah, so a big like shiny gem goes really, really well. And once you have all that, then what you want to do next is you're going to take your thicker acrylic, go all the way around the edges of this. And this one I actually tend to go a little closer to the edge because this is going to be, we're going to cut out around this. So if it's not glued down at the edge, then it's going to like pull apart when we place it together. So just around the edge and then just a little bit more. Again, it's like nothing is, it doesn't weigh much. You don't have to use a ton of glue. It's not going anywhere. And hopefully nobody's going to be trying to pull it apart. And then just anywhere you want on that bigger piece, you just lay that in. Yeah. So that's the first and main part of it. After that, we're going to let it dry a little. I'm going to steal this. We're going to let that dry a little before we go and try to cut it out. I have one I did before, so it's already dry. So we're just going to take and move that little gem right in here, like so. And then you just go all the way around the edges. So I just clip right up to against where this is. If you're using a contrasting kind of color, you could easily go in and maybe make, with the green here, I could have easily used maybe another shade of green or the black or something to go around the wing, so that maybe you didn't cut all the way up to the edge, but you use that as a second kind of color. But for this one, I'm just going all the way in. So, but that would also have been really nice. And this one, it doesn't have to be as, it can be as complicated or as simple as you want. Like I said, if you wanted to, you could even make it like cut a little bit farther away from the edge and use it as a different type of background. And I think sometimes you just have to wiggle things around until you can get the biggest part of them out, and then you can go in and cut out the, I need to sharpen my scissors. And if you get down to the points like that, you can kind of pull them over and then clip like that. That way you get sharper edges on the inside. And then around. And of course, it's always totally okay to just simplify the cut. And the easiest way to do that is to make 2 straight cuts. And then pull that off there. Yes. Okay, so then you have a nice little cut around. You could trim that up a little bit closer. I probably will, but I can finish I can do it after I get off camera. So get that out of the way. You are at the almost done point. I have my weeding tool because I found out it's actually really, really good for adding jump rings. You can also see this is a little loose, so I'm going to add a little bit more glue to this just to make it stick around all the edges. You can always go back in any place you see that it's not quite there. Just take a little bit of glue and go right up in. You could even use a toothpick to like pick up some of it and just lay it in so you can flatten that out. But the weeding tool is also really good for poking holes. And when you use this 3mm acrylic, it's so stiff that it's actually, you don't need any extra reinforcements, but it's just good to kind of push open the hole. You add the jump ring. I'm using one that is in a kind of a black nickel kind of color. I think if I made this in a silver, for example, that I would use maybe pink wings and stuff like that, and then I could do that in a silver. But this works really well with the dark green. 1 jump ring, and then 1 piece of ribbon. This one is 22 centimeters long. I don't know, maybe 6 inches. It's not that long. And twist it around and pull it tight. As far as the edges go, you can either use a little bit of glue on the edges, or you could use, you could melt them a little if you want. I usually just use glue. I cut them into a nice little angle and then usually just put a little bit of glue on the very edge. You could also use Fray Stop, which is pretty much just glue anyway. But just enough that just kind of keeps them from going apart. Yeah. So that's it. That's what you're going to end up with. Again, unless you decide to put some other kind of symbol in here. Yeah, quick and easy. I'll make sure, like I said, I'll get the materials written down for you. One thing I do want to say, I have found out about this glitter fabric, that the way you should have it cut in the Cricut, you should use a strong grip mat. Like I said before, make sure that you use the contact paper so that this is not what is trying to get gripped, but that the actual contact paper is. It works so much better. You should be using a fine point blade, and you want to cut it at the material of denim, bonded, with a default pressure. I haven't done it quite yet like that, but it's I read that on like a store site that's what they recommended. But that seems to make sense because it is a bonded fabric. So, but anyway, I'll write that down too. But that's my tutorial. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you again soon. Thanks.